I'm not sure they want to hear what I want to play, Johnny.
Who's they?
The men who decide what folk music is.
I recently watched A Complete Unknown, the fictionalized story of Bob Dylan's early career, and it got me wondering, what makes a good music biopic? I came up with 4 elements that I think are really necessary. The first 2 are pretty obvious. You gotta nail the performance of whoever is being bioed. If that performance feels off, then the whole thing will feel off. And then, of course, there's the music. That's the whole genre. Alex Epstein pointed out in his book Crafty Screenwriting that anything is a genre if it has an audience that comes to that kind of picture with generic expectations. Audiences definitely come to music biopics expecting to hear faithful renditions of their favorite songs. If they don't, they're going to be disappointed no matter how good the rest of the movie is. So, how did A Complete Unknown do with these first 2 requirements? I'll start with the performances, the non-musical performances, that is, just the acting. And I thought the supporting roles here were all good, including the portrayals of real people like Pete Seeger, Joan Baez, and Johnny Cash. Those were all well done. Of course, this isn't their story, it's Bob Dylan's story, so Timothée Chalamet needed to deliver another high-level performance like he did in these movies, which I thought were really good. Here, however, I gotta say, there were times where I could not get past the way he talked.
Sunsets and seagulls, smell of buttercups. Your songs are like an oil painting at the dentist's office.
Chalamet can do accents. He did one in The King.
What lands in France have you now annexed?
But here he's not really doing an accent. He's doing affectation, and I don't know, it kind of sounds like Bob Dylan.
A message? You mean like, what song with a message?
Perfect vocal replication is not a requirement, by the way, nor is there any science to why some affectations work better than others.
If you're talking about rock and roll specifically, you gotta be talking about Buddy Holly.
I can't say what, if anything, he's doing wrong here. I just don't think it works as well as certain other affectations.
We come down here, we play for a minute, and he tells me I don't believe in God.
You ain't got to beat around the bush with me. I mean, my mama never did.
But maybe I'm just being nitpicky. Feel free to let me know. Either way, it's not a huge deal, but I noticed it enough that I felt compelled to bring it up. Anyway, on to the musical performances.
Johnny Cash and the Tennessee 3.
Biopics are in a bit of a catch-22 here because the actors performing the songs in them probably won't be as good as the original artists, so you're almost guaranteed to hear lesser versions of the songs you like. But there are ways to compensate for that. First is to just have the actors lip-sync the songs.
Now, baby, listen, baby, don't you...
Jamie Foxx, despite being an excellent singer, lip-synced most of the songs in Ray, and that movie was fantastic.
If you say so.
Another option is to let the actors perform the songs themselves, but to only use actors who can do so incredibly well, like Joaquin Phoenix in Walk the Line.
I tried to contact her on the telephone.
A Complete Unknown, however, didn't really go with either of those options, at least not for the majority of the songs. The actors who played Johnny Cash and Joan Baez I thought were actually quite good.
Show me the country.
But again, this isn't their movie. It's Bob Dylan's, which means the majority of the songs are performed by Timothée Chalamet, and I don't think he's a bad singer.
And accept it that soon you'll be drenched to the bone.
I just don't think he's an exceptional singer, especially when faced with the added challenge of trying to sing like Bob Dylan, who has such a distinctive voice.
Cheat or cheat or mistreat you.
The result at times I thought was a little underwhelming. Again, maybe I'm just nitpicking. I'm definitely not saying the music in this movie is bad, but I wouldn't rate it as high as Ray, which shouldn't surprise you because, again, that featured the actual music of Ray Charles.
What you say?
And I wouldn't rate it as high as Walk the Line either because Joaquin Phoenix and Reese Witherspoon are both naturally gifted singers.
I'll take it quicker than a 1, 2, 3.
Let's go.
Time wasting.
Now, there's one more way that music biopics can enhance the musical experience of the audience, and it's so important that I'm giving it its own category, and that is how well the music is incorporated into the story. To show you what I mean, consider this scene from Ray, where he's performing the song Hit the Road Jack. Building up to this point, Ray has been having an affair with his backup singer, Regina King. Ray Charles was a serial womanizer. He was not good to the women in his life, including King, who in an earlier scene begged him to leave his wife for her, and Ray makes it clear he doesn't value her on that level.
Out your damn mind. You knew the rules when you got into this. You know, good and goddamn well I ain't gonna leave my family.
She's understandably furious about this, and during their performance, you can hear the anger and resentment she has towards him.
Don't care if you do, 'cause it's understood.
This is a great example of successfully incorporating the music into the story.
That's right.
Another example is this scene from Walk the Line, where Johnny Cash and June Carter are performing It Ain't Me, Babe, a song that was actually written by Bob Dylan. Dylan and Cash were friends in real life and admired each other's music. And during this performance, you can really read between the lines. These two clearly like being together, and not just as musical partners. They have romantic feelings for each other. The problem is they're both married to other people, and their families are in the audience. June, after losing herself in the music for a moment, remembers this and becomes very self-conscious. So it's never just about the music with these two. There's always this level of drama that makes watching their performances so compelling. This is another really good example of successfully incorporating the music into the story. So how did A Complete Unknown do in this regard? Well, that film also featured a performance of It Ain't Me, Babe, this time performed by Bob Dylan and Joan Baez, who were a couple in real life. In the movie, they're depicted as more of just a fling, and that fling is over by the time of this performance. So unlike with Johnny and June, who want to be together but can't be, these two have already been together and have very little keeping them apart should they choose to reunite. So there's definitely not as much drama here. Still, this is not a bad scene. It's actually a really good performance. But the filmmakers kind of ruined it by getting greedy. They probably realized there wasn't a whole lot of drama here, so to manufacture tension, they had Dylan's former flame watch the performance from backstage, where she becomes filled with jealousy and pain until she storms off. This is Sylvie Russo, who is based on Susie Rotolo, who was Dylan's girlfriend during his early career. I'm not sure why the filmmakers felt the need to change her into a fictional character, though if I had to guess, it's because in the movie, Dylan cheats on the Russo character with Joan Baez, which probably did not happen in real life, just like this scene probably never happened in real life. Filmmakers can of course change whatever they want in order to improve the story, but throwing Russo into this scene to be the other woman doesn't really have the effect I'm guessing they were going for, because by this point in the story, Dylan and Russo's relationship is also over. So once again, this isn't two people who desperately want to be together but can't be. It's two people who've already been together, mutually split, and could easily reunite if they wanted to. On a comparative basis, the scene from Walk the Line wins twice. The musical performance is a notch above, as is the way the music is incorporated into the story. And that brings us to the last requirement a good music biopic needs, and it's one that just so happens to apply to all stories. All stories need conflict. They need drama. They need characters who want things they can't have, at least not without going through massive trials and tribulations. If I had to rank these three films, I would definitely start with Ray, largely because he had the most to overcome. He grew up dirt poor in a single-family, black household in the Jim Crow South. His younger brother died under tragic circumstances when they were just kids, which haunted Ray for the rest of his life. Shortly thereafter, he went blind, and then during the years and years it took for him to break into the music business, he was taken advantage of financially and became addicted to heroin, amongst other problems. So yeah, this movie is filled with conflict and with great music that's woven really well into the story. Just below Ray, I would rank Walk the Line. Johnny Cash also grew up poor in the South and lost a brother to a tragic accident, though when it came to actually making it in the music biz, compared to Ray Charles, he did not have as much to overcome. Early in the movie, he scores a one-on-one session with a record exec, and the guy's like,
"He was hit by a truck, and you were lying out in that gutter dying, and you had time to sing one song."
So Johnny sings the song where he shot a man in Reno just to watch him die. The guy's so impressed that he signed him on the spot. Just like that, Johnny Cash was a rock star before there even was such a thing. He was traveling from one city to another, performing with Elvis, popping pills, banging groupies, and crucially, meeting the woman who would become the love of his life. That last aspect is really what saves this movie. Walk the Line, at its heart, is a love story with great music. Johnny and June's long, complicated courtship translated so well to the screen because love stories aren't about two people being happy together, they're about two people who want to be happy together, but who can't be because there's serious obstacles keeping them apart. These two were kept apart for years because they went through multiple marriages to other people, and because June questioned whether a philandering drug addict was husband material. Finally, coming in third, once again, is a complete unknown. Now, just to be clear, I'm not implying that in real life Bob Dylan did not have a lot to overcome. He did. He showed up in New York City at the age of 20 with no connections and $10 in his pocket. Yet within 3 years, he'd put out 3 albums and was the biggest name in folk music. That does not happen without a tremendous amount of hard work and tenacity. In the movie, though, Bob Dylan, the character, makes success look easy. And that's not necessarily a knock against the movie. It just means that the conflict is going to have to come from somewhere else. This is not going to be a rags to riches story like Ray. It's not going to be a story of someone struggling for years and years against insurmountable odds to succeed. And it's also not going to be a love story like Walk the Line. The two main relationships Dylan has in this movie are with Russo and Baez. Neither lasts very long, and that doesn't seem to bother him all that much. Once again, that's all fine. I don't judge films by what they aren't, but it does raise the question, where is the drama in this story going to come from? Well, despite Dylan's early career success, there was definitely drama in his life at the time, namely between him and the people who loved his music. There's an excellent documentary about Dylan called No Direction Home that I highly recommend. Dylan is such a fascinating and enigmatic person. He wrote some of the most beautiful and important folk songs ever written, which he performed brilliantly, arguably better than anyone ever has, before or since. Then, at the ridiculously young age of like 24, he completely lost interest. He wanted to play electric blues, which he was equally brilliant at. But a lot of his fans were furious about it. They only wanted the early Dylan, the folk singer, social justice warrior, voice of a generation guy that Dylan never saw himself as. There's all these interviews he gave during this time that I find just kind of hilarious because in almost all of them he becomes increasingly exasperated with whoever's talking to him, whether it's fans who thought he was this messiah and kept asking him for the meaning of things that had no meaning.
Well, what about the motorcycle as an image in your songwriting? You seem to like that.
Oh, we all like motorcycles to some degree.
Or it was these clueless media people who would try to label him in a way that he didn't like.
How many people who labor in the same musical vineyard in which you toil, how many are protest singers? That is, people who use their music and use the songs to protest the social state in which we live today, the matter of war, the matter of crime, or whatever it might be.
How many?
Yes. Are there many who do?
Yeah, I think there's about 136.
You say about 136?
Dylan didn't view himself as a folk singer or a folk rock singer or a protest song performer or an activist, as he put it.
An artist has got to be careful never really to arrive at a place where he thinks he's at somewhere. You're constantly in the state of becoming.
He wanted the freedom to change, which is perfectly reasonable, but a lot of Dylan's fans hated that he changed, to the point they'd buy tickets to his concerts just to boo him.
Don't boo me anymore. Don't boo me. God, that booing, I can't stand it.
Jesus, I don't understand how can they buy the tickets up so fast?
I can't think of any other artist that this happened to in such an extreme way, yet the movie does almost nothing with this tension that existed between Dylan, who never stopped changing, and his fans who wanted him to stay the same.
We pay to see a flipping folk singer, not
And it's not that the filmmakers were unaware of this tension.
You guys want to hear Blowing in the Wind, right?
I actually like this scene where Joan Baez tries to get Dylan to play Blowin' in the Wind, which his fans were clamoring to hear.
But here, we're gonna play new songs. Pick someone else, Joan. Pick someone else.
But Dylan was so sick of performing, he just refused and walked off stage. That's the kind of person he was. He may have been unfairly persecuted for evolving as an artist, but he was also kind of a dick. And I wish the movie had more interactions like this. Instead, we have scenes like this, where the Pete Seeger character, upon meeting Dylan for the first time, tells him that folk music is way better than rock music.
A good song, really good song. It can get the job done without the frills. Without drums or
electrified instruments or any of that.
Which is pretty clunky foreshadowing, if you ask me. The movie also makes a lot of Dylan going electric at the 1965 Newport Folk Festival, which is considered a seminal moment in rock history. And this is a decent sequence, but it's also the end of the movie. So we don't really get the backlash to this, which is where so much of the drama of Dylan's story occurs. We don't get these pressers where he's grilled about the meaning of his songs and what he'll be protesting about next. And we don't get these concerts of people booing him, calling him a traitor. Someone does yell out, and Dylan calls back, "I don't believe you." And then he tells his band to, that really happened, but it didn't happen here. It happened at a later concert.
I don't believe you.
And that matters because this later concert wasn't a festival. It's a Bob Dylan concert. He's the only performer. Again, his own fans would pay money to see him, then heckle him, and it drove him crazy.
You're a liar.
Also, in the movie, despite telling his band to play it loud, he still gives a pretty normal rendition of Like a Rolling Stone. Whereas at this concert, after telling his band to play it loud, he proceeds to practically yell the song at his audience. That's how antagonistic his relationship with his fans had become, and the movie just doesn't capture it. So while A Complete Unknown is not terrible, I definitely wouldn't rank it as high as Ray or Walk the Line. Anyway, those are my thoughts on what makes a good music biopic. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time.